Welcome to the Courting Happiness podcast. This is a place where self-care becomes part of your day, a space where you'll learn evidence-based strategies to help your life, share it with those you love, and cultivate well-being at work. I'm your host, Dr. Kortni Alston. I'm a former news director, television reporter, turned happiness scholar, TEDx speaker, and transformational trainer. I also understand hardships. While working my dream job in television, I lived a nightmare of suddenly becoming a young widow after 86 days of marriage. I became committed to learning more about resilience, healing, and happiness. This is how I discovered my area of research, which is positive psychology. Now I'm living my calling of training individuals and organizations on happiness, and my new chapter begins with being happily engaged. The courting happiness is about a true courtship. I like to say commitment with happiness. The K in courting stands for the vulnerability of sharing my story, inspirational interviews with phenomenal people, the infusion of positive psychology, and so much more. You will learn how to commit to your well-being one episode at a time. I hope you subscribe and share. So, are you ready? Let's get started. Welcome to episode 9. Happy Thanksgiving. This is a special Thanksgiving episode. Many of you may be home with your family or not. Maybe you're celebrating a virtual Thanksgiving. No matter what you're doing, even if you're listening to this podcast at a later date, Thanksgiving holiday really speaks to reflection and gratitude. And that's something that we could talk about and really learn from all year round, right? We are going to do something a little different today because I talk about gratitude quite a bit during these podcast episodes. But this time we're going to do something that is about debunking the myths about gratitude. Yep, I said it. Debunking the myths about gratitude. So one of the leading scholars in gratitude research is Dr. Robert Evans. I've mentioned him many times during past podcast episodes. As a matter of fact, one of my first talked about the dynamics of gratitude, and I cited him quite a bit and shared so much of his work. Well, today we're going to talk more about the great work of Dr. Robert Evans. And I liked what he says as it relates to kind of having an attitude of gratitude. I love that. I love saying that. Attitude of gratitude. Well, he says this, and I'm going to quote him. All right. He says that our language reflects our thoughts, and our thoughts partially create our reality. Grateful people freely use words such as gifts, givers, blessings, blessed, fortune, fortunate, and abundance. Less grateful people are preoccupied with burdens, curses, deprivations, and complaints. The language of gratitude draws our attention to the positive contributions that others have made to our lives. Wow, talk about powerful in terms of what Dr. Edmonds shared. So today, let's do this. Let's debunk some misconceptions shared by Dr. Evans. So this is the first one. Myth number 1. He talks about gratitude leads to complacency. You might have heard that before, right? You might think if you're grateful, you're not going to be motivated or challenge yourself to improve your life. Well, research finds that people who are consciously practicing gratitude are successful at reaching their goals. In the study, people identified 6 personal goals, and they planned on working on for the next 10 weeks, right? So those participants who were assigned kept really writing in a gratitude journal, recording the 5 things that they were grateful for each week. And they exerted more effort towards reaching their goals. Now, this grateful group made 20% more progress towards their goals and worked harder. You hear, unbelievable, right? 20% more progress. I think I can't even say it, but progress towards their goals, because it's so exciting to be able to share that information, right? is really the importance and really the value in gratitude. So, keeping a gratitude journal consistently results in feeling more energetic and alert. So, I will tell you this, in my PhD program, gratitude helped me push through. Now, it was challenging for me for many reasons. One of which is that I was a part of a highly competitive PhD program. And on top of dealing with those dynamics alone are just stressful. On top of that, I was dealing with the fact that my mother was gravely ill. And pretty much closer to the end of my program, she started to make the transition where her health started to really decrease. So here I am. And it's interesting. So I can share it. And for me, the timeline makes sense in terms of giving perspective. So I defended my dissertation on July 21st, right? I graduated from the program on August 5th. I started my new job in Georgia, which I was so grateful to have because I thought I might had to look at a job out of the area and I would have to come and visit my parents. But I was in Georgia. I was 2 hours away, but I was back in the same state because my PhD came out of University of Florida. And so I was happy to be in Georgia. And believe it or not, I commuted 2 hours from my parents' home to my new job just to be close to my parents. So let's go backtrack a little bit. Started that new job in Georgia that I was really grateful for, right? On August 5th. I'm sorry, I graduated August 5th. I started my new job in Georgia August 15th. I'm sorry, I got a little confused because my contract began with the university on August 1st. So August 1st, I had already been starting to work for the university, but classes started, I believe, like mid-August. And then my mother died August 31st. So think about that timeline. July 21st, I defend my dissertation. And my committee is saying, congratulations, you're Dr. Kortni Alston. Graduated from the PhD program at the University of Florida on August 5th. Started my new job in Georgia that I was so grateful for. The beginning of August, but classes started mid-August, right? So August 15th. Not even, I don't remember even days into that job. I think I started to have to cancel classes. I had to cancel classes with students. And my chair at the time completely understood. And I got the support of so many people from the university during that time, including students who didn't even know me yet. And then my mother died August 31st. And so, I was extremely grateful for the fact that I had such understanding coworkers that when I got back on campus, when I arrived, my students had flowers delivered to my office. I remember beautiful handwritten note from them. And I remember so many other beautiful gestures from my students there in Georgia. It was just incredible time. And I remember my coworkers who barely knew me. I remember a coworker or two walking up to me and saying, hey, if you need me to cover one of your classes or anything, I'm here. And I thought, wow, I was so grateful. But living in gratitude, I really believe allowed me to see it, right? Because when I look back on that time in my life of dealing with so many dynamics within the rigors of the PhD program, the demand of the program, and then dealing with a parent who was so sick and whose cancer was just her condition, she was just declining. So at that time, so let's go back to August 5th, right, with just a graduation. At that time, my parents couldn't be there for me at my graduation physically. They were there spiritually, they were cheering me on. My parents have been extremely instrumental in supporting me through every facet of my PhD. even though they couldn't physically be there because of my mother's cancer and her condition at the time. And so, one of the things that I remember is how valuable gratitude was to me then and continues to be. Probably one of the reasons why I talk about it so much. But I remember my mentor, and who was my dissertation chair. So she literally guided me through the whole dissertation process and was instrumental in terms of, getting me to where I am. She and my committee, helping me pull together my committee, helping me with my, my research and so much more. Guys, I feel like I could spend an entire episode talking about this incredible woman. Her name is Dr. Julie Dodd. And so I remember Dr. Dodd. We were at my graduation, and I'm looking at all of my, colleagues and some members of my cohort and members of other cohorts and people there celebrating. And I remember looking at, some members of my, some of my colleagues, I should say, whose parents were there. And I looked around, I go, wow, of course I was missing my mom and dad being there. And I was looking at everyone, embracing and seeing that. But one of the things that really stood out to me, even though I was missing my parents being there, even though I knew that they were there spiritually with me. And I remember immediately after my graduation, pretty much focusing on hitting the road, heading back home, back to Georgia from Gainesville, Florida, heading back to the Atlanta area. But when I look back on that graduation, Dr. Dodd, I remember she looked at me and she said, I'm here for you. And, because she knew my parents couldn't be there, she was just extremely supportive. And here I am in my home. And even in this podcast studio, I am surrounded by all of these different gifts that she's given me along the way. As a mentor, sharing her wisdom, but then I have beautiful gifts that she sent to me from books from her library that are in my office at my university, or better yet, the ones that are home with me because of the pandemic. I haven't been on campus at my university in Greensboro since March. But when I look in my home, in my home office and this studio, I look at this beautiful, artwork that she sent to me. That is something that I visibly look at literally every day. And I am so grateful for all that she's given. And I'm so grateful for that moment that she shared with me at graduation when she looked at me and said, and I didn't communicate anything to her, but she's just so insightful and highly empathetic. And she says, I'm here for you. And so I say that because gratitude and being so grateful for her and being so grateful for others who left these positive impressions in my life, who were there when I was dealing with death and who were there when I was dealing with other life transitions. It makes me so grateful for them. So gratitude allows us, honestly, to see the goodness in the world. And allows me to focus in on what I do have opposed to what I don't, or what I'm grateful that I've been exposed to because of that person's presence, opposed to maybe the person not physically being there. So myth number 2 is gratitude. Well, it's just naive positive thinking. Guys, I've heard this so often. Because usually when I tell people I'm a happiness scholar and researcher, and when I'm sharing positive psychology and there's so many assumptions that are made when you just generally share that information, just with the title alone, without even going in depth in terms of the research yet. So you might have heard someone share that gratitude just ignores the reality of pain and adversity. Um, but what I really value what Edmund shares is research shows that gratitude is not simply just thinking positive thoughts, right? Edmonds reminds us that gratitude can be difficult because it allows you to recognize your dependence on others, and that can be challenging. You have to humble yourself. You have to allow yourself to be a good receiver of others and support and generosity. And that can be challenging for some of us. If you find yourself being better at being a giver than being a receiver, when you feel grateful, it might bring you to think about, oh, it's an obligation. Oh, gosh, I feel obligated now, which when you think about it, isn't real positive thinking, right? If when you think, oh gosh, I'm obligated, that sounds like a real downer, right? But research shows that when people are grateful, it doesn't mean that they're free of negative emotions. Practicing gratitude magnifies positive feelings more than reduces negative ones. Think about this. If it was a matter of denial or simply thinking positive thoughts, then you would be void of negative thoughts or negative feelings. Gratitude allows us to magnify the good. Just think about the story I just shared in terms of my life, the PhD program. Here I am, I'm excited, I'm getting my PhD, but my mother is dying. Being grateful did not sit up here and negate the fact that I had all of these negative things that might have been happening at the time, but then it certainly magnified the positive ones. I tell you, one positive one well, there's multiple, but one I can think of right now is the fact that when my mother was dying, so when I went and go back to that timeline I shared a moment ago, and I went and I had to go and cancel classes, and next thing you know, I'm at the hospital, and the next thing you know, the doctor is talking to us and telling us that she's pretty much transitioning at this point, that we can take her home to peacefully die at home. It's explaining hospice care to us. The day that happened, and I remember so many people coming over to the house and helping us and getting the house together and hospice coming in and out. And but within a day or two of that happening, I remember going to the mailbox. And I remember going to the mailbox, getting the mail, clearly, right? But then something magical happened during those 1 or 2 days, that were the initial days of her literally coming home to peacefully die. I got my PhD, my degree came in the mail. And I was able to walk from the mailbox into the house where my mother was. And I went into my parents' room, and I went to my mother's deathbed to give her, to show her, and to tell her about my PhD and show her that it arrived. When I look back on that, that is such a beautiful event. Even though, wow, well, you just said you were at her deathbed. Yeah, I'm so grateful that I had that moment with her to share it. You see what what gratitude does, right? It doesn't negate the fact that I'm sitting here missing the fact that my mother's dying, that I'm on her deathbed, that that I was sitting there thinking about all the dynamics of missing her. But what it did do, it allowed me to treasure the fact that I had a moment, I was highly present, and I could share it with her. This is the irony. 4 years after that event, I still haven't um, taken my degree out of the little circular tube that it came in the mail. I think because so on a subconscious level, I think because I think about those events with her and how I treasure them. So me kind of keeping it in the tube of the how it originally came, right? It's me still thinking fondly about that moment. I treasure that moment. So, yes, gratitude allows us to magnify the good. So, myth three, gratitude makes us self effacing. Edmonds poses this question: if I'm grateful, does the credit I give to others come at my own expense? He shares that the myth is that people recognize the ways in which others have helped them. They risk overlooking their own hard work and natural abilities. He also provides that grateful people were actually associated with a greater sense of personal control over success. Grateful people give credit to others, but not at the expense of, of course, also acknowledging their own responsibility. Eben shares that they recognize their own abilities while feeling grateful towards others. So there's so much value in the dynamics of feeling grateful and what that can bring. And then also how we can recognize others. So when I look back on my time teaching teaching at this incredible college in Georgia, and the interactions that I had with students who barely knew me, I remember the flowers, but I remember all these other cards and mementos. And I can recall also one student making me homemade um, chocolate bread. It was delicious. It was delicious, but it was sweet because of how grateful I was that a group of individuals who barely knew me thought, wow, I can't wait to get to know her, but I'm going to feel for her, even though I don't know her completely yet. But I really, my condolences to her and her family in terms of her loss. And again, I'm speculating the process in terms of the thinking. At the end of the day, I just treasure being surrounded by so much goodness. And so gratitude allows us to really be able to see the goodness. So in Edmund's book, he ends the book. I had to bring back this book that I've talked about in other episodes, right? The Little Book of Gratitude. Guys, it's a little book, but it is powerful in regards to the information in this very little book. I kind of like the fact that it's kind of small. So, The Little Book of Gratitude: Create a Life of Happiness and Well-Being by Giving Thanks. What I loved about this book is at the end of it, Evans talks about Thanksgiving. And I'm going to go to the end of the book. And I'm going to share what he shared in the book, and I'm going to quote him. All right. So he says this: when we give away the goodness, a phrase I like because it implies that we express gratitude by using our own gifts, talents, and abilities instead of keeping them to ourselves or otherwise squandering them. Gratitude becomes thanksgiving. Wow. Gratitude becomes Thanksgiving. I hope you spend this Thanksgiving really with the attitude of gratitude. I hope you spend it thinking about all that you have. For me, I will spend it, and I'm spending it with my fiance. And even though my father is in Georgia, my fiance and I are here in North Carolina, my father is in Georgia. I am so grateful that he is a phone call and a virtual conference, or better yet, FaceTime. I feel like these days I live on Zoom though, but FaceTime away. Days like this, I will tell you, I miss my mom. And I'm so glad that I could share elements of, that story and the journey with her. Um, I'm so grateful for all the things that she taught me. You know, I can't go in a supermarket and, and I can't go and see holiday shopping and I cannot not think about her. Like, to me, she exudes it. It's probably one of the reasons why I live on the Hallmark Channel so much. I love Hallmark Channel, by the way. And I just, something about it. I posted about it the other day, and I said, I don't know, I can't explain it, but it's a thing. It calms my world. But I also believe it's so nostalgic too. It makes me think of her. It makes me think of all the beautiful decor that she brought into our home during the holidays and really all year round. But it's just something about the holidays that were really magical too. I remember, massive Christmas trees and Christmas villages underneath the Christmas tree, and the train surrounding the tree and going around and round in circle and making noise and beautiful Christmas music filling up our home. Her ability to be this incredible hostess that always had a gift, even for an unexpected visitor or two or three, and the laughter that filled our home. You know, the band Perry, I love country music. They're one of my favorite country music bands. The band Perry has a song and it's called um, Mother Like Mine. And the lyrics say, she is the light in the window of the house I grew up in. I hope you treasure the lights in the window in your home this holiday. For some of us, those lights are in other locations, but that is the beauty of love. A person can be close to us even when they're far away. Thanks for listening. I am so grateful for all of you for listening. I can't believe this is the end of episode 9. Let's continue this conversation online. Join the Courting Happiness podcast community in Facebook. Don't forget that is courting with a K. Our private Facebook group is a safe haven to share, meet more people looking to build positive relationships, focus on well-being, and create a happier life. I'm so happy that you're committed to happiness, but are you ready to spread happiness? I hope you subscribe and share this podcast with your family, friends, coworkers, and all the important people in your world. We release a new episode every Thursday. Continue to commit to your courting happiness journey. I want you to be well, be happier, and be kinder to yourself. I can't wait to see you next week.